Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of One Vision. This is Theo, your host for this episode. Joining us today is Vanja Tokic, Retail Agile Transformation Leader, Retail Strategy and Digital Transformation at Raiffeisen Bank International. Welcome to the show, Vanja.
Thank you. Nice to be here, Theo.
Thank you so much that you actually said yes, so we can continue the conversation. I was so happy to meet you at Finovate, thanks to the team in London that brought us together. So let's start with what you've been doing, banking. You've been in banking for quite a few years. And I'm always intrigued when we host different guests on the show. How do you end up in banking exactly? I know some folks, they would say, it just happened. So curious to hear your story, and also from your viewpoint, how has the industry changed throughout the years?
Yeah, glad to share a little bit about me. Yeah, as you said, I've been in banking for a long time. It's been more than 20 years now, and all of that time I've been in different roles within the Raiffeisen banking group. And I started actually by accident through a friend who recommended me for a technical role, so a software development role back then in Croatia in one of the network banks. And that's how my journey started. I'm actually an IT guy. I'm a techie by profession. I'm not a classical banker. So I have a very strong technical background, from software development to like middleware services to data management and the likes. And then I made my way slowly through the ranks of IT, going more to BI and then advanced analytics, data science, AI, and finally the last 2 years I've decided to switch over to the retail banking side. So I'm now in business, and I'm part of the team working on this digital transformation of the Raiffeisen Group, which is interesting. And you asked me about how the industry changed through the years. I think it's a major change that I've experienced. So when I started in the bank, even though I was in IT, it was a very classical hierarchical organization. So the lines were very clear, not just between IT and business, and this was very, very prominent, but also like within the different divisions of the bank. You had very strong line management and verticals that you could not easily, not just cross, but communicate with. And this made things, difficult. And I was struggling with this for years. So I was very happy when we had, first the first agile transformation and started sort of to work much closer, flatten the hierarchies, start working on the digital transformation, really try to integrate IT and technology more into the banking. So I've seen the bank that I work in really transform from this sort of classical bank where IT was seen just as not even as an enabler, but just as a back office service to somewhere to store the data and get the data from, to slowly being an enabler, and then finally being part of a crucial part of the business. So I think we're getting there, and the techie part of me is really happy that we're getting there. So I think this technology can really help the banks to do what they would like to do. Yeah.
I
don't know. That's it.
No, it's perfect. I like what you just said. In some ways, it runs in parallel with my own journey. I didn't come from banking. I spent 20 years in telco, specifically IT. So I was always in the back, making sure, our ordering system is working, the CRM system, working with the business, and trying to support them. And I chuckled when you said we were very much the back office, and then slowly turning into enabler. In a lot of ways, I think we were seen as a roadblock, right? We need to talk to those IT people and do X, Y, Z. Why can't you do da, da, da? We had a lot of those. So I'm glad to hear your journey, and I'm glad to hear that things are changing. And that's like a common theme that seems to resonate, is the partnership between the CIO, CTO office, as well as with the line of business, especially nowadays when technology is in every single bit and part of everything we do. We need a tighter partnership, for lack of better words.
Definitely, I agree with you fully. Yeah, so we definitely need not just need, but I think it's crucial to have this tight partnership relationship, and I'm glad that at least we have it to a very big extent.
That's awesome. Now, talking about technology in business, let's start with the buzzword of the year, artificial intelligence, which was how you and I got connected a while back. So when we talk about AI in financial services, oftentimes people look at it as, oh, this is so cool, this is so new, but we know that wasn't new. And we know it has been used in various shapes and forms for a while now. But we have also seen interesting use cases that have been deployed over the years. Now, we often like to speculate and see what's going to happen, what's going to get deployed, and what's going to get deployed in scale. So curious to hear from your perspective, what gets you excited in the midst of everything that's happening, and where do you see the biggest growth opportunities?
So yes, as you said, AI is not new for us. So I've been working in this area at least for the last 7 or 8 years, and it's been around longer. I think where we started with it is sort of course the trading, and of course the risk simulations, and of course the fraud detections. I think that's where we sort of internally started working with this, and then having the first experts. What is new is that we are inching closer and closer to having it really used and exposed to the end users and the consumers. And that's I think a very good opportunity going forward, but it's also a little bit scary and a little bit dangerous when we are exposing these AI enabled services to the end users. So what gets me excited is, we have really been able to use this, and this is maybe part of this transformation of banks and the digital transformation. For the end users, it's really like shifting from branch to digital channels, to mobile. But for us, it means scaling on a different level. Whereas before you had your personal banker or your personal branch, and they knew you, they knew who you are, they knew your history, they knew your family, they knew everything about you, and they could offer you things that you need. Right now we have this screen wall between us, and it's not so easy to get to know your customers. Yeah. And this is where I believe this is what gets me most excited. Like, if we will get to it at some point in time in the next, hopefully next couple of years, that we can provide our customers a safe way to show them that we know them, but not in a creepy way, but in a useful way. That will be really great. Like, if we can offer them personalized services, personalized offers, and things that they actually need, and then they say, oh yeah, I actually needed that, thank you, rather than, oh my God, it's another whatever commercial, or how come they don't know this? I've sent this a dozen times. Whether it's services, whether it's asking for data or information about the customers, or offering them something. I think that's where we can really improve, and where we can use AI to make these decisions and really personalize them. So if one thing, that's it. I wouldn't talk about, yes, we are doing chatbots and voice bots and voice banking and metaverse banking. We're trying to innovate on a lot of areas, but all of these things are kind of nice to haves. We were trying to find the next big thing, not to fall behind the hype. But if there is one thing, this is it. Yeah. So really, hyper personalization in banking is something which is missing, and I don't think that anyone cracked this so far. Not even the new entrants, and not even the neobanks. We don't have it yet, and it would be so cool to have.
I appreciate what you just said, is getting to know them so well to give them something useful, but not in a creepy way. I can relate to that. And I can definitely relate to, please don't send me any more offers for it. Would you like another credit card? No, I don't. Do you really know me? And if you do, you know what I'm looking for and what I need. So let's get that going. Anyway, so I like that. And I do know your team is also working on quite a few other things. So excited to see what happens. Now, when you were talking about digital transformation earlier, as we're moving from a business and a consumption perspective from branches to being online and how technology enabled all of that, one thing does come in mind. We think about the last few years and how we work and what we work on. One of the topics that keep coming up is AI will change and transform everything, not just from a business perspective, but also as a society. And we see some of that. We start seeing, right or wrong, organizations coming out and say, well, we can apparently use this technology to do X for us. And we, don't need X% of the workforce that we have, or we are able to scan through documents so much more efficiently that, can do the work of 10 analysts compared to before. Now, efficiency and productivity, always great, but it does bring to the forefront a question that I always have is, what about if you're someone new? You're coming into the industry. What should you do, or would there still be anything left for you to do? Because I think about, for example, my kids, right? My teenager kids. And we often talk about, well, you need to learn how things work and how all of these tools and how it helps you. But if you look at what some of the tools, what it does, it sort of replaces some of the entry level work that we would need to do to understand the business. So what would your advice be for someone who's new to the industry?
You're right to a very good extent. And I mean, I do worry about it. And I also have a teenage daughter. So I'm looking at sort of the world that she's growing into. Still, I'm not losing hope. I keep myself like informed and I read a lot about the history and the different revolutions that we already had, and I do think this is another revolution, and I think we will go through it and we will survive through it. But things will change and we will adapt. And looking at my daughter and looking at also like people that are starting right now in the banking, like we're hiring a lot of students. That's one of the things which I really love about living in Austria. That we are offering a lot of entry-level jobs, entry-level positions, coming back to what you said. But those people, they're not there to, they're not doing basic administration. They're not doing like document management and stuff like this. They really are getting into the heat of it. They're really getting into the fire. They're really starting to contribute more and more to, to improving the business, to giving fresh ideas. They're seen as part of the team from day one, which I really love, which is not something we had before. So you had your entry level beginners who were there to assist, to bring coffee, to listen, to learn, and to be quiet. And I don't think we expect that anymore, and I don't think they expect that anymore. They really want to join, and they want to join in from day one. And this is, I think, where we have a chance. And what I would advise to someone, I mean, even if we're taking a lot of people now in the street, so people from telco, like you mentioned you were, but also people with like psychology background, linguistics background, different areas which are not related to finance and banking. One thing is, of course, they have to develop financial skills. They have to know, a lot of them come in and they have no idea what money is, how banking works, what financial industry does. Like they're really blank slates and they have to invest a lot there. But on the other side, they bring something new into it, and this is what I like. So I think the technology, both technology and the financial skills are easier to learn. So I would say, continuous learning, that's definitely a must for anyone entering any industry today. If you don't learn, you will fall behind. What I really like is that I think we are educating our younger generations to have this. I hope so. At least the young people that I work with, and the people surrounding my daughter, they are definitely in this area. So they like to learn a lot, they like to consume a lot, they grow with this. So I don't think it's a shock for them. I think it's more for us, like the older generation, that will have a hard time adapting than worrying about how the younger generations will do it.
This is probably a good time to share that I actually just finished a online class, and the material itself was really interesting. I wanted to learn more, but the way to learn was so different than, when we used to go to school 20 something years ago. And I will be the first to admit it was a little challenging because I don't consume information the same way that I guess a lot of younger kids do nowadays. For me to stick, I actually have to pay attention, to listen, to scribble notes, which I do right now. And that made the journey and the experience so much longer. But it was interesting, as you say, we need to keep learning, we need to keep adapting. I like how you were talking about you have hope that these kids that would jump right in, contribute, and we will be okay. I think I need to hear that today. We will be okay. But speaking of, though, you did mention one of the you hire from across industries, telco, psychology, and what have you. And the psychology part was interesting. I hear more and more people saying that they are hiring from liberal arts going into tech, which sort of like we're combining and cross learning and gaining from different disciplines, if you will. And that's something we think about when, you and I are now chatting over the internet. Everything is more digital. We consume movies, streaming online. We order groceries online. Everything becomes digital, becomes optimized. We need to squeeze every, second out of everything we have. How do we stay human? It is very much a question as, we look at closing branches, for example, offering services digitally. Yes, it offers people a different means of transacting, of doing things. But at the same time, I do worry that we don't spend as much time being with other people, chatting in person, doing things together anymore. So how do we still preserve that human touch, and where should we spend more time on?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, it's also in the core of our strategy when you talk about closing branches and sort of digitalizing everything or optimizing to the maximum. We and I mean, I personally believe this is important. I think it's important to keep the branches open. I think it's important to remain part of society. I think banks, like specifically banks, you were talking about like streaming movies and entertainment, digital entertainment, and so I think banking, in my as I understand it, or as I take it, is fundamentally different. It's not a thing which is, I mean, part of it is easy to consume, like you need the basic services, you need to be able to move money around, that's fine. But I think, need for financial security, need for getting finances, need for knowing how to invest in your future, like all those things, you need somebody on the other side. We don't have this, we don't teach it enough in schools. I mean, that would be one thing. We have to teach it more in schools anyway. But when it comes to financial health and financial life, you cannot optimize it to a sense that you just offer something digitally and hope that people will know everything about it and they will do it. And they will just, take the next whatever, stream their savings and take whatever is offered online. I maybe to an extent, but I don't think that this will be a broad. I don't think that's a good use case going forward. We have to invest in keeping human interactions. Even this, I would still, even when you say we're communicating now digitally, but we're communicating, in my view, face to face, very personally, very emotionally engaged. So this is important. Even if you offer this kind of service digitally, it's important to have a person on the other side who sort of still maybe is augmented with AI, knows a little bit more about you, doesn't need to have met you before, but to offer you, the services, but gives you this personal touch and sort of understands who you are, what you need. I think, or I sincerely hope that this will not be replaced, because that would just be sad. And I don't think that we will allow it to happen, because we need the, like, humans are social animals. We need this human touch.
We do. And I remember I very much enjoyed chatting with you face to face in London. And I liked, follow interaction before we got onto this podcast. And then I try to reflect back on how my kids interact with their friends. Nowadays, I've seen them in play dates. They would have computers when they do play dates. They would sit next to each other and they would play games together online next to each other and not really talk. They chat, literally, they type to each other, even when they're next to each other together. It was just, it's surreal. And I miss the board games. I miss running outside, just, randomly chit-chatting, doing nothing. I do wonder if it's just a phase they're going through and they're going to go back to social interactions, you say, right? You said humans are social animals, and we need each other for mental stimulation, for just to feel that, I'm talking to someone and not a machine. I hope that doesn't change. I don't know. It's just,
our fingers crossed. Yeah.
Fingers crossed. There's so much I learned from the kids, and I often tell people I got into Roblox because that's where my kids are when I travel. So that's my way of keeping in touch with their world. And I hope their world doesn't change too much, that I can still keep in touch with. But looking at trends, right? While in that train of thoughts, what do you believe will be some of the most influential global trends that will impact the future of banking, since you're in the midst of it?
You mean besides AI?
Yeah, besides AI. We're going to try to move the conversation off of the topic.
That's fine. I mean, there is so many things happening, and I think the digital transformation, so this kind of digitalizing the financial world, is opening up so much. What you said, your kids being on Roblox, and in general, people spending more time online, spending time in apps, spending time in games, in virtual worlds. I believe that's where we will have to be as well. There is no sense of, and you say you are there as well to be with your kids. So the banks will have to be there as well at some point in time, to offer services, to seamlessly integrate, to seamlessly interact. So I really believe, I mean, besides I'm sure that blockchain and digital currencies and digital money will definitely be a thing, will be a trend. But I think what will impact banks more will be the open banking, the embedded finance, and sort of putting banking away from banks and more into the hands of where the customers are, so that they don't have to come to a bank, or that they don't have to open their banking mobile app to do banking. So I think this will be the next big transformation for banks, and where banks, I don't think most of them are still realizing that. Some of them, yes, and I mean the neobanks probably more than the traditional ones. But I think if I'd have to choose one, not being AI, I think this kind of opening the banking ecosystem to sort of beyond banking and embedding banking services into everywhere else seamlessly. I think this will be a big one in the coming years.
I agree with you. Meet people where they are, right? Meet the kids where they spend time, meet your customers where they are. That's the only way to be part of that ecosystem, be part of their world, to be able to relate to them and offer them the services that they need. When you're talking about hyper personalization, I strongly believe that's part of it. Before we started the recording earlier, one of the other things you were talking about is the banking services being a commodity. right? So when you said earlier, open banking, embedded finance, taking hold of being the future of how we will meet customers where they are. In your point of view, how would banking services being a commodity affect competition and innovation in our industry?
Yeah, that's $1 million question, and I think every bank will have to find a way how to survive this, and I think that they will be forced to find a way. I don't think there will be any way to opt out of it. Maybe for niche audiences or for niche clients, that there will still be the classical banking services offered, for sure. But I think most of the banks will have to adapt, and I mean, there's been books written about it, but and I tend to agree with what's written in those books. There is definitely, like, primarily two ways. So either you will offer your banking as a service, as a platform. You will commoditize, you will accept this, and you will utilize it and scale, and use economies of scale and offer your services to everyone everywhere, and and survive through provisions and offering services, and maybe offering it also for other banks, or being the intermediator. So bank as a sort of intermediating platform. The other option is that you enrich your bank with additional services, and so that means you sort of you find new business models. You provide, like, really great customer experience, additional services, marketplaces, things that attract customers to bank with you, and not just bank with you, but also maybe do whatever social events, concerts, you name it, provide additional services, telecom services, So I think either the banks will create an ecosystem around them that enables them to survive with adding additional services, similar, like, the big tech companies, which are primarily basically selling ad space. But if they're only doing that, then they're very vulnerable. So they try to find additional services to add, sort of to make a healthier mix. I think banks that want to keep doing just banking, they will have to add something to the mix, or they will accept this commoditization. But I think those will be the really big players that will take over the platform industry. And I think it will just be a handful or dozens of global players that will be doing this. Yeah, I mean, that's my 5 cents, and it could be something completely different. Like, we cannot predict the future, so
We can't, of course, we can predict the future. That's why I was talking to you. You have this crystal ball that can tell us what's going to happen. Your point about big tech was interesting because we have seen them evolving what they do and adding to their ecosystem, not just to make it bigger, but in a way to offer more services, make things more sticky, and to be more helpful to the consumers and the businesses that rely on their services. So you start seeing them, like Apple. I love Apple as an example, how it started as a computer and then added all of everything, software services, iOS does a lot of things now. Basically my entire house is full of Apple products. And I loved it when they rolled out the credit card and the Apple Bank, which I know is only in the US, but it adds different elements that meet the needs of how we live our lives. And I do hope that banks will come from the other way and look at what do we need? Because oftentimes we talk about banking as a super app, and you look at the super app concept in Asia is very different than what we think super app is in the West. Like, I look at, Asia, Southeast Asia, their model has so many different things and functions that's included in the app that goes beyond just banking service. Whereas in here, when we think about super app concept, we think the bank's just going to do everything and it's all going to be originating from the bank's perspective without thinking about what is the customer journey? What exactly would it be useful to consumers to consume? And what do they need along the way? And it speaks to your part about hyper-personalization. So before we close, I do want to ask you, as an extension of that, when you look into the future of Vanya's crystal ball in the future of banking, what role do you see partnerships and ecosystems play?
We see this, and I personally see this, but also we as a bank see this as a crucial thing. Yeah, it's really important to collaborate with fintechs, with tech companies, with academia, with non-financial services, and our clients are it. We have an interesting case. At least it's interesting for me, maybe not for anyone else, but it's interesting for me that we have our clients are in a lot of cases becoming our partners as well, meaning our corporate clients. Yeah, so we have examples where we are starting up partnerships with our corporate clients and where we offer services to the end customers together in a let's say in a new way. So I think this is really good. It creates not just a more complete service for the for the consumers, for the end clients, but also for us, new revenue streams, new business. It sort of it extends the reach and how we work. So I really like that we started already, I think 6-7 years ago, the venture capital arm of our Raiffeisen Group, investing as well in early fintechs and startups, supporting them, and creating these kind of growth ecosystems, working with academia on cases. Also, like, I think banks have to realize that they are also part of society and they have to give back also to society. I truly believe this. I'm glad to see some cases where this is really the case. Yeah. So I'm really glad when it's not just partnership and ecosystems for for selling more. When we see partnership and ecosystems for advancing a little bit the education, offering something to underserved customers, also supporting the entrepreneurs, giving grants, giving injections, financial injections, or giving them a place to work, transforming branches to offer them as co-working spaces for the startups. Like, there is so many things that we can do, which is not purely financial services, which kind of also include the broader society. So I think partnerships and ecosystems are great. I'm all in for it. We have to do more of that. Not just banks, but like everybody has to work closer together. That would be my closing statement as well on the topic of partnerships.
Everything has to work closer together because we are more connected to each other than we think we are. And there's only one planet, there's one Earth, and one world. So we need to work together. Thank you so much for your time today, Vanya. I loved our conversation, and I love that we were able to expand on the topics beyond what we had originally talked about back in London. So appreciate your time, and I can't wait to see you again, hopefully sometime in the next few months. So, and for the rest of our listeners, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of One Vision. We will talk to you all next week.